Finals. Our Brian Windhorst reports that LeBron James does not respect Coach Blatt. This on the heels of Blatt's first year as an NBA head coach, along with his first finals appearance. There are many questions about his future.
I think it's very clear the way LeBron and some other players don't respect him. I've never seen a situation like this with the star player and coach, certainly not one that lasted. So I think it's unpredictable. But I do think there is something to be said for the fact that Blatt totally yields to LeBron. He takes all the stuff that LeBron gives him, lets it roll off his back, doesn't let it affect his job. And I think at the end of the day, LeBron likes the freedom. He likes having Blatt to kick around, something he couldn't really get away with other coaches in the past. And so I actually think LeBron is okay with him going forward. And if David Blatt is okay with taking the abuse from his star player, which he does, then David Blatt will be back. I think it would be more Blatt's decision than anybody else's at this point.
All right, so Stephen A., pretty powerful stuff there from Brian Windhorst, suggesting that LeBron necessarily doesn't respect him but doesn't mind having Coach Blatt around. What do you make of the report?
Well, Brian Windhorst is right about some things. He's wrong about others. He's right about the fact that there is definitely an absence of respect for Coach David Blatt and his coaching acumen on the NBA level by LeBron and several other players inside that locker room. They don't believe that he is necessarily equipped to run this basketball team. There's a profound level of respect that they have for Tyronn Lue, significantly upgraded to the level of respect that they have from David Blatt. That much is true. Where I disagree with Brian Windhorst emphatically is this notion that LeBron actually likes having somebody to push around. That's not LeBron James. LeBron James is the kind of person who wants to be coached. He just wants to be coached by somebody who is exceptional at his job. I promise you that if, let's say, for example, a miracle happened, which it never would, of course, and Greg Popovich were coaching the Cleveland Cavaliers, or Doc Rivers were coaching the Cleveland Cavaliers, LeBron James would be ecstatic, because that would be something less that he has to worry about. The more he gets to just do his job and not have to worry about some of the ancillary things on the side, the better off he would be. It's not to say that he wants to be insignificant, that he wants to be treated as somebody who's a laborer, just shut up and play and move out the way. He certainly doesn't want that. But at the same time, he doesn't want to be in a position where he has to do the job he believes a coach should be doing, because he doesn't want that responsibility. So having the latitude to, quote unquote, push a coach around, I totally disagree with Brian Windhorst about that. That's not LeBron James. That's not his makeup. That's not who he is. That's not how he is. He's just somebody that has been in the league for 12 years, who's been to the finals 6 times, who's a 2-time NBA champion, a 4-time league MVP, and universally respected by his peers, by coaches, by executives the world over. This not just for his athletic ability and his ability to play the game of basketball, but also for his IQ. He's a smart brother, and LeBron just knows what he's dealing with in David Blatt, a guy that has accomplished an incredible amount as a coach, but in Europe, not on the NBA level, going up against NBA teams, against NBA players, against NBA coaches who are familiar with one another and how things get done on the NBA level. That's foreign to David Blatt. It's not foreign to a few other coaches. And LeBron James, in a perfect world, would prefer those coaches to David Blatt. It's just that simple.
Wow. Stephen A. Smith, let me say up front, you know how much I respect you, your basketball acumen, the years you've covered the NBA, but I must say up front that I also have high regard for Brian Windhorst.
So do I.
Especially when it comes to covering a LeBron James. Obviously, he's covered LeBron since LeBron was a toddler. And LeBron last year at the finals volunteered how much respect he has for Brian Windhorst, that nobody has been around him more and has a better feel for him than Brian.
Yep.
Which is why I find this report, to me, just stunning. And I'm going to have to obviously accept Brian's insight into this situation, and I must say, this report comes off as very critical of LeBron James. You might even go so far as to say it's somewhat damning of LeBron James to say that he likes to have Blatt as someone he can kick around, somebody he can talk back to without fear, that he can get away with that. And it comes across to me, Stephen A., and I'm going a level deeper here, as he likes to have David Blatt around as a potential scapegoat, as a built-in excuse in case things do go wrong, as they went wrong in games 4, 5, and 6 of the finals, where he knows that Blatt will ultimately take much of the fall for what went wrong. So I hear you, and I have high regard for LeBron and his basketball IQ and his willingness to get coached in Olympic situations by the Popoviches, the Coach K's of the world. We get all that. But on this level with his basketball team, I've said all year that in body language, it looked to me like LeBron was the unofficial head coach of the team. And now Brian is suggesting that's exactly what he is, that he could actually talk back to David Blatt. He could actually openly disagree with David Blatt in front of the rest of the team and get away with it in ways he couldn't with a stronger, established coach. And that LeBron likes that situation going forward. And I hadn't thought of that. I said yesterday that I'd also heard from a source close to a number of the players, not including LeBron, that none of the players have much respect for Blatt as a strategic in-game coach, his substitution patterns, his ability to X and O with the other coaches. They thought he was overmatched even in the finals against Steve Kerr. We get all that. But when you step back, the one angle I hadn't considered yesterday when we talked about Blatt's future is, would LeBron want him for what I would consider the wrong reason, which is to keep a potential scapegoat around in case things go wrong? And that's what Brian Windhorst is suggesting, and I'm going to take that to the bank. I think there must be a lot of truth to that, or Brian would not have gone with that. So I'm going to accept what Brian says, and it doesn't speak well of LeBron James.
Well, let me say this. You're entitled to accept whatever you want to. I'm not knocking that, and I don't blame anybody for listening to Brian Windhorst when it comes to LeBron James, because Brian Windhorst does an outstanding job covering not just LeBron James, but this league. And I like Brian Windhorst a lot. We talk often, and I have a tremendous level of respect for him. But let's also understand that, you know what, I don't pretend to know everything. But what I know is what I know. And it's based on my reporting and my sources and me being connected to the league for 20 years. And when I tell you I know something, you can book it, because I don't say that very often. I might sit there and deduce, things based on the dots and how they're connected, et cetera, et cetera. But if I tell you I feel a certain way, I have profound reasons for feeling that way. I've had conversations with LeBron James in the past. I've had conversations with every coach that he's played for. I've had conversations with every executive he has played for, with a lot of teammates he has played for. His inner circle I know very well as well. So I take all of those things into consideration, and I'll lean on my years of knowing LeBron James and a thing or two about him over the past decade. And I'm telling you that I don't believe for 1 second that he is an individual that wants a coach that he can push around, because that's more important to him than having a quality coach to help him be more successful. I think if LeBron has to choose between the two, the LeBron James that I've known through various other sources, including him, at least the earlier part of his career, certainly not recently, that's not that LeBron James. That LeBron James is somebody that would prefer to be cushioned by an exceptional coach to watch his back and put him in a better position to win. It is just that simple. And so that's not to knock Brian Windhorst in any way. He's pointing out very accurate depictions about what the team feels about LeBron James, about Coach David Blatt, what LeBron James feels about David Blatt, and both he and Dave McMenamin, who's done an outstanding job covering the Cavaliers all season long, they both have been saying this for months. I'm simply saying where we part ways is when it's this notion that LeBron James would actually not mind having David Blatt around because that's somebody he can kick around, as opposed to having a coach he respects and trust will put him and the team he plays for in the best position to win. LeBron James, that I know, that I've reported on, the people that I've talked to about for about a decade, there is no indication whatsoever that that is a part of his makeup. And when we talk about his IQ and we talk about his commitment to excellence and how badly he wants to win and how he does things the right way, all of that flies into the wind if you're telling us that what takes precedent is that LeBron James would prefer to have a coach to kick around. It makes no sense, and it doesn't vibe with everything we've come to know and love about the best player in the world.
So if you're right about that, then it would be incumbent upon LeBron James as we go into this offseason to make it very clear to Dan Gilbert he does not want David Blatt back next year, because I think we all agree David Blatt was often overmatched, that this team was winning in spite of him. So if it wants to take it up to another level, they should go get the best, strong, established basketball coach on the market that they could get.
Yes, Skip, you're right. But once again, in the process of deducing what should be done and what have you, you're putting LeBron in a bad spot without being sensitive to the situation that he's in. Remember, in order for him to do what you said, he has to trust that Dan Gilbert and he can have a man-to-man conversation between the owner and the best player in the world, which, by the way, may be a conversation that the GM David Griffin doesn't necessarily approve of nor enjoys because he's supportive of David Blatt. Then you have to trust this Dan Gilbert to keep it quiet and to make sure that he honors the code of silence and not throw you to the wolves by saying, I didn't want to do this, but LeBron wants to, so we have no choice, thereby putting LeBron in a position where he's deemed a coach killer. And this is the same Dan Gilbert who wrote the letter that he wrote to LeBron James, questioning his character, basically calling him a traitor when he left Cleveland, also sitting there and implying that LeBron James threw a playoff game. You remember that letter. I'm supposed to sit there and expect LeBron James to trust this man, to have a private conversation where he's telling the man what he wants in the best interest of the franchise, and the man is going to honor that without throwing LeBron James under the bus. If I'm LeBron, I'm not trusting that man to do that. I'm not trusting him. You're the owner. You're the GM and David Griffin. You should be wise enough and connected enough to your own franchise to recognize and realize what is best and what needs to be done without hearing directly from me. Because why should I trust y'all to honor the code of silence when you've thrown me under the bus in the past by literally implying I was a quitter and went so far as to imply that I threw a playoff game? All of that stuff that Dan Gilbert wrote in that scathing letter to LeBron 5 years ago, he didn't just sit there and call him, a turncoat or whatever for leaving Cleveland. He also implied y'all have no idea what we had to put up with while he was here, because he was saying that LeBron was a quitter and threw a playoff game and all of this other stuff. I can't trust that man to have that kind of conversation with him. I can't do that, Skip. That's not right.
But last point, Kerry. Nobody would blame LeBron James for, quote-unquote, killing this coach, because I think very few people have that much respect for this coach. I think most people would respect LeBron for, quote-unquote, getting rid of this coach, even if he took the, quote-unquote, blame for getting rid of Blatt.
But if we're talking about it and everybody knows it, why should he have to tell Dan Gilbert? It's clear. So why should he have to have that conversation?
Well, because Gilbert hired him, and it sounds like that Blatt and Gilbert are pretty close, like he's a pet of Gilbert's.
LeBron should not have to have that conversation.
All right, listen, gentlemen.
The handwriting's on the wall.
Blatt completed the first year of his 4-year, $20 million contract. We shall see again the future of Blatt up for debate. Let's move on to football.